Good evening, guys. I'm Chris, and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. Right, still working on this, PR6, and I'm having a really good time. I got yesterday, which was Monday, I did some machining work on those chassis. Can you see them up there on the bench? There you go. So I'm currently drilling out punching for chassis. Did a bit of that, and then I spent the rest of the day working on this. It's one of those days where you just get your head stuck into something, you put your music on, and you just have a really good time building guitar amplifiers. And that's what it's all about. That's what I love. Time just disappears. You know, you start doing something, and then you stop doing something, and 3 or 4 hours have passed because you're just having such a good time building something really, really cool. Weather's nice. I mean, we're currently in a heat wave at the moment. Got the aircon on, so I'm nice and cool in here. You know, I've got my music on, and just having a wonderful time hand wiring an amplifier, living the dream. So yeah, I don't mean to sound smug at all. Absolutely not. But it was just a great day yesterday. I'm really enjoying building this. So I'll show you progress shortly. But I'm just wiring up the preamp valve sockets. Anyway, Q&A time. Loads and loads and loads of comments and questions on the past couple of videos. So as always, I can't get to them all. A lot of them can be covered under one comment. So if I don't put your comment on the screen, I do apologise. It's just because I had many similar comments about a similar thing, so we'll just cover them under one thing. Anyway, Joachim says, thanks Chris for again great learning on executing tube problems. Have you ever worked on Zoothorn amps? I own a Zoothorn G500 serial number 007, which a friend colleague has worked on, removing all the scratchy faders and replacing them with new old stock ones. Repaired a fault in the preamp, but still some big concerns, which I won't mention now, too much info, so he will check that later. I haven't, and to be honest with you, I can't say I recognise that name, so I will look them up. But no, I've never had one in the shop, so it wouldn't be fair of me to comment on those amplifiers. I couldn't even tell you where they're from, so I don't really know much about them. But I will look them up. But if you're having problems, I'm sure a competent tech will be able to get to the bottom of them and get your issues sorted. And I'm sure it's a great sounding amp. Bigfoot Murray says, it seems that you are pushing more ads than you used to the point that it gets a bit frustrating. Good content otherwise. No, not me. It's YouTube. I just turn on the ads, monetization, and YouTube puts in as many or as little amount of adverts as the advertisers are paying for. There is an option for me to add extras if I want and be really greedy, but I don't. I just leave it as the stock settings. But yeah, it's not me. It's not something that I've done. So, but what I will say is, if you are somebody that, like me, watches a lot of YouTube. I mean, YouTube is probably my main viewing platform, even over TV and streaming services. I watch so much YouTube that I pay for YouTube Premium. I highly recommend it. Ad-free viewing is on YouTube is worth its weight in gold. Just pay the money, get rid of the ads, and enjoy it. It's so much better. A little bit of good news. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the closing of Hiscox guitar cases, a great UK British manufacturing firm of wonderful guitar cases, and the owner, Bryn Hiscox, decided he wanted to retire. He didn't want to sell it as a going concern, so closing the business down, winding it down. And it was a sad day. Well, good news. Apparently after he announced that, he received 15 or so really viable offers to buy the business. And he said in a statement that when they drilled down into it and looked at it, most of those offers then realised what he had already discovered. The conclusion that he reached was that continuing that business in the UK simply isn't viable. Manufacturing in the UK is ridiculously expensive. Reasons behind that are probably well talked about and well known, so we'll leave it at that. I know how expensive it is, and I'm only a small op, right? So a business of that size, it must be difficult. Anyway, so most of those offers to buy and run the business in the UK, they worked out it wouldn't be possible. But one offer from a Polish brand, RUF or RUF, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that. They've decided, and he's accepted their offer to buy the IP, buy the brand, buy all of the tooling, and continue manufacturing Hiscox cases, including all the custom stuff that they do, but over in Poland. And I think that's the second best result really we could have hoped for. The first being that someone bought the business and could make it work here in the UK. But the second best result is that the brand at least continues and the legacy lives on. Now, what he said is that he's managed to pay off all of his creditors. Businesses always have creditors. So he's managed to pay all of that off, so 100%, so they don't owe anybody any more money, which is great. So everyone's been paid. There's no creditors left waiting. But also he said he's managed to pay all of his employees that are being made redundant their redundancy pay. So that at least they're not going without either. Obviously they're losing jobs, etc., but they do get a redundancy pay, which is great news. That's, as I said, it's the second best result we could have hoped for. Apparently one of those employees is actually staying on and will be running a UK distribution base for Hiscox. So obviously everything will now be made with the original tooling over in Poland, where everything is, labour costs are lower, running costs are lower, etc. But there will be a distributor here in the UK run by one of the current Hiscox employees. So all of the current customers who have custom stuff done, dealers, etc., can still get Hiscox cases from a distributor here in the UK. And I think that's great. I think that's pretty good news, right? So hopefully the Hiscox name will continue for many years yet. It wouldn't be surprised me if RUF or whatever they're called now use that tooling to make other brands of cases as well. Of course you would. If you make an investment, you've got to maximise on it. I get that. But at least the Hiscox brand will continue. So yeah, good news. Quite a few comments on the mains wiring video that I put up Monday evening. Ryan Phelps says, great video, Chris. I love your channel. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Maybe consider becoming a channel member. I imagine that the major amp manufacturers, Fender, Marshall, Vox, for example, understand this stuff. Yep, they probably do. I also imagine that your video is directed towards boutique and manufacturers, and this is important. Yeah, that's primarily what it was for. It's to give you guys, consumers, an idea of what you should be looking for, and if you pay for somebody to build you an amp, what you should be expecting to see. But also it's to give some of those guys some of those builders who aren't doing that a little nudge in the right direction, saying, yeah, have a look at this, rethink what you're doing. Let's not build an unsafe amp, right? Okay, fine. If I were a boutique amp manufacturer, I would design my amplifiers to comply with the most conservative / restrictive requirements or beyond, no matter where my amps were sold. And this is something that I did briefly touch on, in that, yes, each individual market has its own requirements, but there are higher international standards to which you may choose to build your amplifiers to. The one that I choose is IEC 62368-1. All right. Now, that's the standard I aim to achieve to. All right. And that's a much higher standard than. And the idea is that if you build to that standard, you tick all the boxes for the minimum requirements for all of the markets into which you are selling to. All right. So that's kind of a good way to do it. And yet, if you were going to do that, that's something I would recommend too. Ryan also says, say you design and market your amps for the United States market, but perhaps it is later sold to somebody in Europe or Australia and an accident occurs, the liability to the manufacturer could be huge. No, not to the manufacturer, because part of the requirements is that you mark and label your amplifiers appropriately. So an amplifier that I would sell to America would obviously be wired for American voltage and would be marked and labelled as such. And so the user would easily be able to identify the correct requirements for that amplifier. So they would know that an amp wired for 120 volts, fused correctly, etc., etc., they shouldn't be plugging that into their local mains voltage without making the appropriate steps. That wouldn't be the manufacturer's liability at that point, as long as they've appropriately marked the amplifier. People import and export amplifiers across countries all the time, and as long as the manufacturer has done their job and marked the thing appropriately, wired the thing appropriately, then it's their liability is pretty much covered. Where you'd run into an issue or a problem is where they haven't done that, and then there may be, in the event of accident, injury, death, you may be able to open that up as a potential liability avenue. But yeah, again, excellent advice, Chris. Well, no problem. On the same issue, Splattle, talking about mains wiring, says, good explanation. I've seen a few amps from boutique builders that didn't comply. Yep, it's pretty common. A tech with whom I've corresponded, a card-carrying member of the Electrical Engineers Association, reckons the issue here in Australia, is that there's nobody inspecting this stuff. The requirements are the requirements, but nobody is checking. I try to get this stuff right, even though I only build amps for myself and repair my own gear. I don't do it to be holier than thou, but because I actually use these devices myself and would rather not die a stupid, avoidable death. So a lot of this comes down to, I can't speak for Oz, but here in the UK we have, and I have mentioned this on the channel before, this is all governed by a government department called the Office for Product Safety Standards, and their Market Surveillance Authority department, here in the UK at least, will they do spot checks. So they can there's a number of methods that they use to check people are doing what they should be doing, and they're not being, should we say, unethical? That's probably a fair way of putting it. I've been spot checked twice, okay, since I've been running Rift. I'm probably overdue one now. And what they do is they could just order one of my amplifiers as a mystery shopper, And when it arrives with them, they would then inspect, test, strip that thing down and check that everything is as it should be and up to code. They probably wouldn't do that on a guitar amplifier because of the cost. What they've done in the past with me, not because they inspected anything, just because it was a random spot check, is they just turn up out of the blue. They walk in here and say, right, show us your technical files, show us what you've been doing, show us your processes, show us your supply chain paperwork, where you're getting these things from, how you're doing these things, what testing you're doing, where's your evidence of your testing, etc, etc, etc. And that's happened to me twice, and I've passed both times flying colours. I know of quite a major UK pedal manufacturer who had one of his pedals mystery shopped. So they ordered a pedal from him. They then inspected that pedal, found he was breaking the law, he wasn't following the processes, and they came down on him very hard, forced him to recall certain pedals, take some pedals off sale in certain markets, and rechange his designs. So they are quite strict on it. Now, those pedals are not even mains powered, but again, what he was doing was not following the law as implied. Now, when it comes to Australia, I would imagine that there is a market surveillance authority. I would imagine that there is a process in place. Whether or not they're doing spot checks or mystery shops, I don't know. But you could bet your life that if a amplifier caused death, shock, injury, fire, whatever, there would be an investigation by the appropriate department. And at that point, and this is what I always get asked this, people say, I'm interested in starting my own, I want to start selling amplifiers, have you got any tips and tricks for me? I've built a couple of kits, have you got any advice for me? And I say, yeah, know the rules inside out, upside down, back to front. And this does sound morbid, and this is something I've said on the channel before. Do not do this job unless you are so confident in what you are doing, the processes you've got, you know the rules inside out to that standard that you could confidently stand up in a coroner's court and say, my amplifier did not or could not have caused that injury, burnt that house down, etc, etc, because I do this, this, this and this, I follow these processes, this is what I do, this is what I've done. In the event of a fault, the amplifier is designed to do this and to protect the user and itself this way. So, and here's my evidence for that, etc, etc, etc. If you don't have the confidence to do that, stand up in that coroner's court and defend yourself, don't get into this business. Don't risk it. The fines are a minimum of 5 years and £20,000 fine, 5 years imprisonment. That's the minimum. It can be more. So if you F up, you think, oh, I just get around this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, I'm going to buy in kits, sell them under my own brand, to mates down the pub or whatever, but I'm going to hang on to them for a certain amount of time, so I sell them as a used unit. It doesn't matter. If your name's on it and you sold it for money, you need to make sure it complies. You are liable. So that's my advice for people. All right. Terry says, Ainsley's a great player. Yeah, he is. Beautiful feel, phrasing and choice of notes. You can tell within about 3 seconds he's just got it. Perfect ambassador for your amplifiers. Yep, I completely agree. Ainsley's been with me pretty much from the beginning. I mean, I was in my first or second year of doing this full time. I was still building out of the cupboard at home at the time when I first met Ains. Did a couple of repairs for him. Then we did a deal where he would do demos for me in return for servicing and maintaining his amp collection, and we've worked together ever since. And he's perfect in terms of being an ambassador for Rift. One, because he's got that universal respect from other guitar players. I mean, he gets name checked by everyone all the time as someone you need to go see. The way he plays, he's not big-headed, he's not smug, he's a great player, always focused on tone. His live show is incredible. Whether he's playing, some blues hall, some in the middle of Germany, or he's playing a festival somewhere, everyone wants to get up on stage with him. Everyone respects him. He's a fantastic player. He has got the ear, and I worked with other big players as well, but nobody's got the ear like Ainsley's got. And I'll say this, I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. When we were developing his signature amp, there were times where I tried to trick him and to test his ears unknowingly, and every time he worked it out. And the best thing about it is that when he's testing an amp and he finds something that might be difficult for me to hear, or maybe it's a feel thing, he can find a way to demonstrate that and to emphasize it, to show what's going on. And that's a skill that you rarely come across. And again, I've had big names in here before, and they can't do what he can do. So yeah, he's a great mate as well. Incredible player, perfect for Rift. We've got a fantastic product with a huge waiting list, huge demand for it, that's universally admired. And yeah, long may it continue. The other thing I wanted to talk about was do you remember at the end of last year, I kind of did a, end of year wrap up, roundup, whatever. Or was it the start of this year? I did a New Year plan or whatever it was. I can't remember. Don't shout at me. But I said the plan this year was to launch 2 new models, right? One of which is the Priority. I can't tell you about it just yet, but as soon as I can, I will. But the second one was the bass amp. I really wanted to get the bass amp done this year, and at least get it on the market, so if people want to order them, they can. It wouldn't be a big launch, but it'd be nice to get the Deep Riff Mark II available to order. Well, I don't think it's going to happen. It's just the way it's worked out. It's not going to happen for all sorts of various reasons, mainly being that I've just got too much other stuff that is priority over it. So, but it will happen. Who knows when? Who knows when? But there's other things that I need to do before a bass amp gets done. Unless somebody wants to come on and order 20 from me and put the money down now, then we probably could prioritise that, but that's not going to happen, is it? I've got wonderful customers who are waiting for things. I've got the as yet new amp, the Priority one, to get done, which I really need to get sorted on. Got loads of bills to do, loads of repairs. I'm a busy old boy. So yeah, it's my announcement today is that the bass amp's probably not going to happen this year. Yeah, probably not. I wish it could, but sometimes you have to make that hard decision, and I don't think, with all the goodwill in the world, it's going to happen unless I stop doing something else, which I can't give up the stuff I've already, the work I've already got on the books. So in order to do something, you've got to make room for it, and there's nothing that I can move to make room to get that done. So hope you all understand. I know some of you are quite keen and waiting, but as with everything I do, it's always worth the wait. But we'll get there eventually. maybe sooner than I'd like, but probably later than you would. Talking of the Lazy J, Bassett Tiffany, sorry if I get that wrong. Why are the Lazy J's so poorly constructed? Can't be that the builder just doesn't know any better. The evidence proves otherwise, I'm afraid. And it's, to be fair, it's not just Lazy J amps. There are many, many boutique amp brands out there which are not up to snuff, not up to the standard to which they could be built and should be built. Now, I can only really speak to my own mantra, which, as most of you know now, is every amp must be better than the last one that I build in some way or some form. You must, in my opinion, constantly strive to improve both yourself and the product that you're offering if you're going to put your name on it. If you look back at the amplifiers I was building at the start of my career versus where I am now, there is a huge, or not a huge, but there is a marked improvement over time. And that's by design, because I want to get better every time. I want to improve what I'm doing all the time. That's not to say the old amplifiers are bad, it's just that my own skill set, my own processes have continually improved. And you can't say that for other amp builders. They are still churning out the same level of stuff that they were 10, 15 years ago. And I often look at that and say, what does that say about that particular builder who's doing that? Do they not care? Do they not have the skill set to improve? Maybe that's the thing. You can ask that question a million different ways, but I always say if an amplifier, if someone isn't changing what they're doing for whatever reason, I mean, that goes, and that rings true for any job. You know, anyone who's, any tradesman, any craftsman, any, like a web developer or a filmmaker or a photographer or a sparky or a plumber, if they are still the same, working at the same standard they were when they were an apprentice or a trainee, and they've got 20 years experience, what's going on there? Questions to be asked. So what I hope is that by showing off what I do on this channel, offering tips and tricks, showing how things can be done, and that drags everyone else along with me, and that everyone improves, and it inspires people to say, actually, fair enough, my amplifiers aren't as good as they could be. Let's try and improve them. Because that's what we want. We want everyone to improve. We want to improve the market for everyone. Now, am I saying that I am the best out there? No, absolutely not. And regular viewers of this channel will know I've always said that we're all on this path, this journey. Some of us are further down the path than others. And just because I'm further down the path than you, there is somebody who's further down the path than me. Mark Bartel being one of them. Martin Kidd being another. Those guys know how to build and design really high quality amplifiers. And Mark Bartel particularly is great because he's not restrained by accountants and costs and things. Martin Kidd, when he's given free rein, has produced some fantastically designed and sounding amplifiers. Some of the stuff that he's been involved with, where the penny pinchers have been involved, you can see that, and it's not his fault. So don't hold that against him. I have full respect for both of those guys. And there's others out there as well who are just further down the path than me. And that's why I'm constantly trying to get better. I'm not staying still. I'm trying to improve. In 10 years' time, my amp building skills will be even better than they are today. And 10 years after that, I want them to be even better again. I don't want to stand still. So, yeah. To answer your question, mate, it's not just Lazy J. There are a lot of people out there who just... Yeah, to say whether they just don't know any better, Maybe ignorance does come into it. I mean, you only have to look at yesterday's video on mains wiring to see, I always ask the question, if they don't bother to look up the rules for mains wiring, what else aren't they looking up? It's a question to be asked, isn't it? Catman Doodoo, regular commenter, welcome back, mate, says, talking about Shakespeare's Princeton, says, interestingly, I've had a Jensen C12Q, I think the other one was a C10R, wasn't it? But anyway, just C12Q in my modded Fender Excelsior, and had noticed that after an hour or so of playing, it would lose definition. Interesting. So after seeing that video, I switched for an old English greenback, and that issue that he had disappeared. Even playing for 2 hours straight on the hottest day last week, he had zero tonal change. I like big magnets, and I cannot lie. Yeah, so I mean that customer, the Royal Shakespeare Company, haven't come back to me with any further feedback on that. But I suspect that the problem with that particular amplifier, again, was that the speaker is just not up to snuff. When it gets really hot, performance degrades. So it probably needs a speaker upgrade. But yeah, interesting that you found that too. What's the next wire on this one? It's that one, isn't it? John Burns says, because remember I was talking last week about how busy I am, and I was contemplating how to ensure that I don't get too busy. One option I was considering was temporarily closing the order books for a couple of weeks, just to manage the level of work coming in. The other option was to start turning down certain repair work and stuff like that. Lots and lots of you commented that maybe I need to get an apprentice or an assistant in the shop, start farming work out, whatever. Now, what most of you don't know is that I'm actually the other side of that. In the very start of 2020, before COVID, I took on an assistant, and I had Jamie working here for 3 years. Some of the long-term viewers of the channel will remember Jamie. I took him on as a complete beginner, but he had that correct level of OCD, that correct work ethic, that correct focus on constantly wanting to improve what he was doing all the time. And for 3 years, he worked for me. Now, the reason I took him on is the business got to the point where I was doing 1.5 man hours of work myself. So my capacity is 100%, I was doing 150, so I needed that extra. And in fact, when he started, that allowed the business to grow even more, where both of us were working flat out. So I had 2 man days worth of work every day for the business. COVID and Brexit killed most of that off. And after 3 years, Jamie moved on. He now works in Pro Audio, building mixing desks over at Solid State Logic. And he's doing really well. But he was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. I no longer have that level of work that justifies me taking somebody on, even part-time. When I'm saying I'm currently busy, at the moment, I'm probably about 104, 105, 106% of my capacity. So I am slightly over, which is why I'm just trying to stem it slightly. It's not enough to justify taking somebody on, even part-time. And as an apprentice, the reason I took Jamie on as an assistant, not as an apprentice, is none of the local colleges offer electrical engineering or any relevant courses like that. The only one would be general manufacturing, but that's 2 towns over. So apprentice schemes in the UK, they do 1 day a week at college, 4 days a week working. So I've already been down that route. I've had a look. Also, from a moral point of view, I don't agree with the apprentice wage rates. They are too low. especially with the cost of living now and what things cost. If you're paying apprentice minimum wages, yeah, pay a decent wage. Unfortunately, because of the amount of work where I am at the moment and where the business is, I don't have that level of work to justify taking, the cost of training somebody up. I don't have the time to train somebody up to the standard I need, etc., etc. So then you say, right, well, what about taking on a retired chap who wants to do a couple of days a week? Again, been down that route. It's an absolute minefield. Most of the old radio and TV tech guys, unfortunately, COVID killed them off. So there's not many in the area, which is why the repair side of my business is doing so well, because all the old repair guys are gone. There's not many left, especially in this area. But also, what I know and what I've discovered is that the standard of work isn't as good as you'd expect. A lot of these guys, you look at the standard of soldering, you look at their lead dress, you look at the way they approach things, they might have the knowledge, but they don't have the physical capability to work to the standard that I need. So, what I've decided with this is just to simply be more selective in the work that comes in. In terms of repair stuff. Now, I can always say to people, and the easiest way to do that is to say, look, I have a repair queue. Your stuff is welcome to go in the repair queue, and you wait for it. If you need something quicker, you'll have to take it elsewhere. And then that's up to the customer, and if they're happy to wait, then great. I'll work on their stuff. If they're not, then they can take it elsewhere, and it's, not a problem. There are certain brands which, you see, Marshall is another one at the moment. You see, where it's getting more and more difficult to get parts from them. Hopefully that changes with the new owners now, but we'll see. I'm not taking on any more Mesa Boogie stuff. Again, I remember I said no more carving. There's a couple of stuff. No more Ampeg SVTs. Not interested in those anymore. Some of the older Ampeg stuff, fine. But the thing is, I don't want to turn away all repair work or some of the tricky stuff, because it's good for you. It keeps you on, keeps this working, keeps you thinking. You've got to think critically, and if you want to keep learning and improving, you've got to challenge yourself. So you've got to have some of that in. But yeah, taking on an apprentice, the overall workload for the business doesn't justify it. The standards that I require means finding the right person is tricky, and I'd rather, where I plan for the business to be long term, to keep it stable and consistent. I'm not trying to be a millionaire here. I'm just trying to pay my wages, go on holiday once or twice a year, go racing. Me and the missus aren't having any children. Just want to enjoy our lives, and I want to come into work every day and enjoy my job. I'm not trying to be a millionaire. I'm not trying to grow the business so I can sell it. I want to do this job until I retire. I don't want to sell it as a going concern. When I do retire, I'll probably sell the IP off to somebody who wants to maybe continue stuff. But yeah, it's basically, I want an easy life and a job that I enjoy, which is what I've got. And so I'm trying to keep it as stress-free as possible. Anyway, but yeah, that's where we are with things. I think I'm just because I'm busy. That's all it is. Just restrain the amount of work coming. Restrict. But yeah, good question. Well, update on the PR6 build then. So as you can see, the pots are all wired in now. The valve sockets are all wired in. Filter cans are all wired in. Bias board is done. All that's left for me to do on this now is heaters, mains wiring, input wiring, a couple of shielded wires. The only other thing then also is my bias voltage supply, and then that's this one done. looking great. Really happy with it so far. Is there anything else I need? Oh yeah, sorry, mains wiring. Yes, I need to put my IEC socket, fuse holder, and then yeah, sort all this stuff out. It's coming along quite nicely. Quite happy with this. So it's looking super neat. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. Lots of talking this week. Jabba, jabba, jabba. As always, please give this video a thumbs up, or your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you know if any new videos come out when you're not expecting them. If you're feeling super generous, why not join the channel like these guys did? And I will catch you all at the next one. Speaking of race cars, off to Anglesey this weekend. Drive up on Friday, race on Saturday. Now, it's a slightly different layout to the circuit that I've raced on twice before, the international layout. We're on the coastal circuit this time, which cuts off essentially 2 long straights and a hairpin. So I'm actually doing, there's a free practice session first thing on Saturday morning, 20-minute session. So I paid for that just so I can get mine, because I've not driven these 2 new corners, and it's quite a height change. Oh, gone blank. Yeah, it goes from quite high, it drops down quite quickly. What's the term for that? I'll remember. So yeah, just to get mine on that before we do qualifying now. They've really messed the timetable up. Yes, it's, you know, we're near the longest day of the year. That was last weekend, wasn't it? But they've practice session at 9 in the morning, qualifying is at midday, and then the race is not until 5:45 in the evening. 45-minute race. So we finished at, if all goes to plan, finished at 6:30. Takes an hour to pack up, get your trophy and whatnot. So we won't be leaving the circuit till 7:30, 8. And then we've got a 4.5, 5 hour drive back. So I'm not going to be back till 1 in the morning. Yeah, exactly. Not happy, but it's the way it is. We did think about staying overnight and driving back the next day, but as you lot know, I live near Silverstone, which means we'll be coming back Sunday morning with all the Grand Prix traffic heading to Silverstone. So it'll be an absolute nightmare, so we have to get back on the Saturday night. Anyway, how's the championship going? Well, after 2 rounds, I'm currently sitting 2nd in the championship, 9 points off the lead. So I've got a lot of work to do. There are 4 rounds left, including this weekend, to be equal on points with the yellow BMW, who is leading the championship. I need to outscore them at every round by 3 points, which will either be basically, so I just need to finish in front of them every race. It's possible, but who knows? This weekend is also, looks like it's going to be a wet race, and one of their drivers is supreme in the wet. So yeah, who knows? No idea how it's going to go. But of course, I'll give you an update on next Wednesday's video to let you know how it all went, what's going on, etc, etc. But I do love, do you know what, motorsport is great. I love it, especially these summer races. Yeah, the weather's not looking great, but you never know. It's, you know, Anglesey's weather, it changes on a dime. So we could end up with a dry race, which is what I want, because I am quite fast around there in the dry. Not so much in the wet, but you know, maybe that's what I need. Maybe I just need more laps in the wet just to get myself sorted. But yeah, and then then after that we've got a month break until we go to, what's round 4? Where's round 4? Snetterton in Norfolk, the other side of the country. But yeah, North Wales this weekend. The Isle of Anglesey and Track Mon is the name of the circuit. Looking forward to it. Just got to finish ahead of that BMW.